All right, here we go. I'm gonna give my opinion on every single NHL trade since February 20th. So starting with the Coyle trade, going all the way, I think Mark Stone trade was the last trade. So I'm gonna go through every single trade. I'm gonna say who I think won, go over it briefly because I have to leave for work in 30 minutes. So let's see how fast I can get this done. I just shaved. I just did a whole bunch of. Look at this. Gotta get a haircut though. I look gross. Anyways, here we go. So the first trade, you got Coyle to Boston for Donato and a fifth. I think both teams win in their own little respective ways. Actually, let's go to Elite Prospects instead. Yeah. I'm going to use them for my stat tracking. Actually, tell you the truth, I think honestly right now the winner of this trade is probably Minnesota, to tell you the truth. Donato has 6 points in 4 games. And Charlie Coyle, I don't even think has a goal yet in Boston. Yeah, he's played 3 games. He's a -1. So I think, to tell you the truth, I really do think that the winner of this trade is the Wild, not Boston. And they got a 5th-round pick with it too. Next trade, you got the Capitals getting Hagelin for a 3rd and a 6th. I think Washington and LA both make out. You know, LA gets assets, for a guy they might not have gotten anything for. So I'll take it. I mean, they traded him for Tanner Pearson, and Tanner Pearson got traded for Eric Branson later. So what does that tell you? So I think both teams win in their own little ways. Washington gets their rental bottom 6 forward and adds speed, and LA gets assets. Blue Jackets getting Duchesne. I think Ottawa wins the trade. To get 2 first-round picks, obviously one of them is conditional, but Vitaly Abramov, who's probably a B-plus prospect, and then Jonathan Davidson, who's like a B-minus prospect. He's playing the SHL right now. It's actually not bad. Granted, the Blue Jackets get their first/second-line center, but Ottawa definitely gets as many assets as they can for Duchesne. And I thought they got a lot for him, so I'll give them credit. Florida Panthers acquire Vincent Praplin from the Sharks for future considerations. I guess Florida wins because San Jose hasn't gotten anything yet. The Capitals get Nick Jensen and a 5th from Detroit for Madison Bowie in a 2nd. I think Detroit fleeces Washington in this trade. Jensen's not a terrible defenseman, but a 2nd-round pick in Madison Bowie, who could still kind of pan out to be a little bit better than what Nick Jensen is now. Pretty darn good. But Washington gets the defenseman they need. So, in a way, they kind of broke even, but I think Detroit gets the benefit of the doubt. Dallas Stars get a Ben Lovejoy for a 3rd. Yeah. Oh, and they got Connor Carrick, too. So, I think the Devils win their own little way. They get an asset for Ben Lovejoy, but the Dallas Stars get Ben Lovejoy, who's a good bottom 6 defenseman. Cost him a 3rd-round pick, but Blue Jackets get Dzingel in a 7th for Duclair in 2 seconds. I think Ottawa wins this trade, definitely. Now, if the Blue Jackets re-sign Ryan Dzingel, they definitely break even. But right now, I have Ottawa as winning this trade, although Dzingel's been all right in Ottawa. The Rangers trade Zuccarello to the Stars for a conditional 2nd and a conditional 3rd that can both turn to first-round picks. I think, honestly, both teams break even here. Unfortunately, right now, the Rangers are winning this trade because Zuccarello's out with an injury long-term. But initially, I thought the Dallas Stars did a good job of not giving up too many assets to the Rangers. And I thought the Rangers could have done a little bit more in terms of asset acquisitions for Zuccarello. But at the end of the day, statistically speaking, you look at the Hoodler trade a couple years ago, it kind of made sense what we got for Zuccarello. LA Kings acquire Spencer Watson from the Hawks for Matheson Iacopelli. I don't know those 2 players. If I'm correct, I thought it was Spencer Watson that was traded to the Blackhawks, but yeah, I thought that was how that went. Because Spencer Watson was a 7th-round pick by the LA Kings in 2014, I believe. Yeah, it was the NHL.com had it wrong. Yeah, no one really wins or loses this trade, I don't think. Here's a swap of prospects, change of scenery. They're both getting close to their prime, so I don't really see much coming out of it. Baptiste to the Leafs for future considerations. No one really wins that trade because, again, it's future considerations, so I guess Toronto, I don't know. Sabres getting Brandon Montour for Brendan Gooley and a 1st. I think both teams break even. It's a great trade for both sides. Ducks get futures, and the Buffalo Sabres get a now defenseman who can arguably play top pair minutes. Patrick Seeloff to the Ducks for Brian Gibbons. I think it's a wash, clean trade. Ducks get a depth defenseman, and the Senators get a depth forward. Sharks getting Gus Nyquist for a 2nd and a 3rd. Good trade on both sides, honestly. Detroit, I think, again, that's just a trade we can call a wash because, the Sharks get Gus Nyquist, who's going to round out their top 6, maybe even top 9 because they're so deep now. And Detroit gets assets for a guy they weren't going to keep. So it's a good deal. Blue Jackets getting Keith Kincaid from the Devils for a 5th in 2022. I don't know. I don't really know who to give the nod to this because the Blue Jackets have Bobrovsky, Korpisalo, and Kincaid now. The Devils have an extra 5th-round pick 4 years from now. Who knows? I don't know how this works out, but both teams respectively went their own way. Winnipeg Jets at Kevin Hayes for Brennan Lemieux, a 2019 first and a 2022 conditional 4th. I think the Rangers win in their own little way. They get assets for Kevin Hayes. They get a first-round pick, a 22-year-old roster player, and maybe even a 4th-round pick after that. And the Jets get a middle 6 center. Basically, Kevin Hayes to the Jets right now is what Paul Stastny was to the Jets last year. So both teams, again, win in their own little respective ways. I don't know how Kevin Hayes did in his first outing with Winnipeg. I don't recall seeing him getting any points, but he'll fill out their center corner. Yeah, he's only played 1 game. Okay, Jordan Wheel to Montreal for Michael Schafut. Again, it's just a wash trade, swap of depth forwards. Minor league trade here. It was the Canes got Yurko from Florida, and the Hurricanes sent Cliff Poo to Florida for Yurko. It's a wash. It's just swap of minor league forwards. Personally, I like Thomas Yurko better than I like Cliff Poo. That's just me. Yurko's a little bit older. I think he was drafted in the Kreider year. Flames get Oscar Fantenberg from LA for a conditional 4th. So, the few times I've seen Fantenberg play, I think LA wins this trade because they got a 4th-round pick for a guy that really isn't a stud defenseman, but they get assets for a guy I guess they really were getting ready to move on from. So it seems not a bad trade, but then again, Calgary also gets a 7th defenseman. So, then again, a 4th-round pick is kind of is reasonable, over a reasonable price maybe, overpayment for a 7th defenseman. What do I know? Blue Jackets get McQuaid for the Rangers for Bergman, a 4th and a 7th. Honestly, I think Columbus wins this trade and the Rangers lose because we end up giving up more for McQuaid than we got back from because Julius Bergman is going to the SHL next season. We traded McQuaid for McQuaid with our 4th and our 7th, which is going to be way higher than the Blue Jackets' 4th and 7th. And we also traded Steven Kampfer. So, the Sharks acquired Jonathan Dahlin from Vancouver for Linus Karlsson. I took a look at Linus Karlsson to see what his story was and why he was deemed equal value to Jonathan Dahlin. And, well, the kid's actually not bad. 3rd-round pick last year, 19 years old, 6'1", $187. They say size and scoring ability, fine hands, and overall offensive skills, good hockey sense, and great character. In the Super Elite in Sweden, he had 2 assists in 1 game, and he got moved up to Allsvenskan. I don't know. I think that's 1 step below the SHL. I think. If I'm correct, I think that's like the AHL to the SHL, right? He's got 17 points in 49 games, which honestly is not even really that great. So I don't know. He's younger than Jonathan Dahlin, so I don't know. Honestly, I'll call that trade a wash right now. Although I think the Sharks get a more ready player in that deal. I think Canucks definitely are banking on Karlsson for the future, whereas the Sharks are kind of hoping Dahlin could be in the NHL next year. The Bruins get Marcus Johansson, or Mojo, from the Devils for a 2nd and a 4th. Both teams win in their respective ways. The Bruins get another depth-scoring forward, and the Devils get assets for a guy that was just going to walk anyways. Matt Hendricks going to Winnipeg for a 7th-round pick from Minnesota in 2020. Yeah, why not? Depth for Winnipeg. I think Hendricks has been in Winnipeg before, and Minnesota gets assets for a guy they probably weren't going to keep. The Avalanche get Brassard for a conditional 6th. And a conditional 6 for a 3rd in 2020 from the Panthers. I think, honestly, Colorado might win this trade because they got Brassard in a 6th for a 3rd. So they dropped 3 rounds and got Derek Brassard. That's a pretty good trade, in my opinion, for Colorado. Granted, Florida gets assets, but I think Colorado comes out ahead on that one. The Penguins get Chris Weidman from Florida for Jean-Sebastien Dia. Tough to call. I guess Penguins get a top a 6th or 7th defenseman for a prospect who was hit or miss, so it's not too bad. And then right after that, the Penguins send Pearson to Vancouver for Eric Branson. I think Vancouver wins this trade. I don't think Branson's good enough to match what Tanner Pearson's value is. And I think contract-wise, Branson was a little bit more expensive than Pearson in the longer term. Excuse me. And then the Jets acquire Bogdan Kieselvich from Florida for a 2021 7th-round pick. So Winnipeg made a lot of trades. It's a wash because, Winnipeg gets another depth defenseman, God forbid injury. And Florida gets assets for a guy that wasn't going to be here next year. Now, the Predators get Mikael Granlund from Minnesota for Kevin Fiala. Now, me personally, I think Nashville gets the nod in this trade right now because Granlund is a much better player than Fiala is right now. However, Fiala's development over the next 3 to 4 years is going to be telling of this trade. But right now, I think Nashville wins. But we'll see. Who knows? Kevin Fiala might actually end up being pretty dope. Jets get Alex Broadhurst from Columbus for future considerations. That's a wash. Just a wash. I think Broadhurst is really just a fringe top 6 AHL player, if anything. Then here we go. Vegas gets Mark Stone and Tobias Lindberg from Ottawa for Brandstrom, Oscar Lindberg, and a 2020 second-round pick. So, me personally, I think Ottawa wins this trade, kind of. So, here's the deal. Eric Brandstrom is an A-level prospect, almost an A-plus prospect. You could actually argue that. Now, the issue is I was surprised Ottawa couldn't get a first-round pick in 2020, considering the fact that Mark Stone it was like a sign-in trade. It was like pre-negotiated where Mark Stone on March 1st, when he's able to, or July 1st, I don't know when it is, can sign an extension, which he did. Excuse me. 8 years, $9.5 million per year. So I think with that 8 years of Mark Stone, I'm just a little surprised they couldn't get a first-round pick out of it. But I do think Ottawa does get a bit of a nod in this deal. Now, granted, Vegas gets a bona fide first-line right winger, one of the best two-way forwards in the league, hands down. I think Ottawa probably could have maybe taken that second and gotten a first out of it, but I'm not going to complain because, in Ottawa, in 2 years from now, when Eric Brandstrom and Thomas Chabot are their top pair, I'm going to look like an idiot. So, what does it matter? The Jets get Par Lindholm from the Maple Leafs for Nick Baton. Both teams win in their own little way. I think Baton could actually be a bottom 6 forward in Toronto if they want to use him there. And Par Lindholm, I think he's younger. I think he's like 22 years old. Just another one of those. Did I spell that name wrong? Another one of those young Swedes from Toronto. Actually, never mind. Lindholm's 27. I'm way off. I guess they just brought him over. Yeah, he's all right. He's okay. The Blues get Delzato from Anaheim for a 6th. Both teams win in their own little way. Anaheim gets assets for a guy they weren't going to keep. And St. Louis gets another depth defenseman. He'll probably slot into their top 6. The Jets also get Nathan Beaulieu. Jesus Christ. Beaulieu from the Sabres for a 6th-round pick. Now, I think Buffalo loses in terms of, I think they give up a 2nd and a 3rd-round pick to get Beaulieu a couple years ago. Or a 2nd-round pick just to get Beaulieu. So the fact that they turned a 2nd-round pick into Beaulieu into a 6th-round pick is kind of rough. And then again, Winnipeg just gets another depth defenseman. The last trade was the Nashville Predators acquire Wayne Simmons from the Flyers for Hartman and a conditional 4th. I think right now Nashville wins this trade. But if Ryan Hartman turns out to be pretty solid for the Flyers for the next few years, I think the Flyers can come out ahead. But Wayne Simmons is the best player in this deal, and he will always be the best player in this deal. I don't see Ryan Hartman ever getting to a level that Wayne Simmons is at in terms of point production and just playing in all scenarios. Like, I know Ryan Hartman can kill penalties, but can he kill penalties as good as Wayne Simmons? And the conditional 4th-round pick, who knows? That 4th-round pick could turn to a hell of a player. Zetterberg was a 7th-round pick. Datsuk was a 6th. Lundqvist was a 7th. Kucherov was a 2nd. Ben was a 5th. You never know with these picks anymore, so you can't even really pass too much judgment on them. But anyways, that's really it for the NHL trade deadline. Comment down below, what do you think about my thoughts on trades, and what are your thoughts on all the trades? Let me know. That's about it. See you guys next one. Peace.